Welcome. Today we have the webinar on how to integrate ChatGPT to solve productivity problems. I'm Carl Vickmore, the CEO of Raven Automation. I also have a guest with me today. I'm really excited to introduce my good friend Ted Hulsey, who's the Chief Revenue Officer for Snaptech IT. He also is a bit of an AI hobbyist buff and also a professional user. I also like to say I use it in both aspects of my life as well, both personal and professional. So I'm excited to have the conversation today to see what we can share with you that's going on with ChatGPT these days. The world of AI can be confusing, and we can have a lot of options and perhaps even option paralysis, wouldn't you say, Ted?
Yeah, I mean it's confusing. It's confusing, and you also need kind of a small R&D budget at a company to carve out some time and money to play with all these solutions. So hopefully we're able to cut through some of the hype and provide some practical guidance to the audience today. So.
And when I think back to the development of AI, I think ChatGPT is sort of the first one that sort of came to people's mind as a layer that interfaced with the OpenAI platform. I know in the very early days of the AI experiment, Jared Brantley and Joe Wood, who are a couple of our top engineers at Raven Automation, were using OpenAI before I heard of it, and they're using it to help write code and to do some automation things. The use cases were terrific, and they were getting some great productivity. And this is, I'm going to say 4 years ago, something like that. I mean, like kind of ahead of the curve in some ways, but then ChatGPT hit the scene, and it's all the rage, and it's what everybody knew about. And then other AIs have come in the path. There's some really terrific options with like the Microsoft Copilot product. There's the Claude things going on, the Google Gemini. Major players are in, but I wouldn't fully write off ChatGPT as one to think about. It's still relevant. They're still developing terrific content, and I think there's some really interesting use cases. So we're going to show a few things that are pretty relevant to what you can do today with ChatGPT, and talk about a little bit about how to use AI to begin with. I think one of the key things here is, what type of user of AI are you? I saw an interesting graph yesterday, Ted, from a friend of mine. He owns a marketing company, and he was showing me the US population in little slices of 3.2 million at a time. So a box meant 3.2 million people. And the vast majority of it are people who have yet to even log into AI. I mean, vast majority. And then there's a crowd that has logged in and uses it like Google searches, which is a terrific use. It's more relevant than just a standard Google search. Although, to be fair, if anybody's been Google searching lately, you'll notice that AI responds there too, using the Google product, right? And so it's really happening everywhere, be it a Bing search or a Google search using whichever product, or but opening ChatGPT to replace that is not a terrible idea. But I think the real key is, like, how do you get this to make it usable in your business? Well, you can use some of its analytic power. You can connect it to different applications and different systems that are going to allow you to power charge or supercharge those things. And so to me, it's like everybody should be asking the question, how am I going to make this more than just a really good Google search? But as a search and research tool, it's excellent too, right?
Right.
And so those are some of the key elements. And so
yeah,
we need to figure out. Go ahead, Ted.
And I would just jump in and say, I mean, the other interesting thing when you're kind of looking at like the cohort analysis of like people's different experiences, like a lot of people have never logged in. Some people have logged in and they're using it kind of like a Google search, but it's really quite, it's literally only, say, I think like 1 to 3% of all AI users are actually paying for a premium solution.
Right, the $20 version, right?
Yeah, and then, which is pretty shocking, because you can't, anything we're talking about in the business space of connecting these tools like ChatGPT to your actual content and your own apps, you need to be paying for one of those premium versions of the product. And it's only a small proportion of the public that's actually, the business public has actually done that. So we strongly encourage you to do it. You can get, and we'll kind of get into, we'll look at we'll look at a little bit quick crash course on ChatGPT for Business here in a minute, but for just 20 bucks a month, you can get into the Plus plan, and then for $30 a month, you can stand up, per user per month, you can stand up a small ChatGPT for team business setup for your own internal team, and actually start experiencing how to use these tools with your own content, which is, I think, where the magic happens. I mean,
100%. It becomes so much more relevant. And the thing is when you get into that team dynamic, now you can create collaborative search, collaborative projects, and now multiples of you can benefit from this little world that you're creating of information and applications and GPTs that are running automations for you. It's like the application completely opens up a new option once you're doing it collaboratively. And so to me, it's like, yes, the amount of folks using the $20 rate is another slice. That's a small, and then the very small, and on this whole dot of all the people in the United States and the folks that have never logged in, and the folks have logged in using like Google search, and then the next slice down is those that have an actual paid account. And then there's this really small group that is actually taking it into major business use cases, using agentic things, doing formal automations. That crowd is small, but I would say feels like growing quickly. It feels like a lot of folks are like really jumping in these days, and I highly recommend you too. You don't want to do it completely recklessly. You need to understand a few things about it, but in the grand scheme of things, this is the way, if you will. So we have some demo things today. I asked Ted, who's done these kind of demos a number of times in different formats with the SnapTech IT clientele, some of these particular use cases that we could show.
Right. So these are the demos we'll get into a moment, but I think it's always helpful just to give people kind of a lay of the land. Carl, do you want to walk through this, or you want me to take it, or?
Yeah, look at let's do it together, right? So this is some of the major things. There's the consumer version, the plus version, the team version, which we are already alluding to here, right? And just about every major product out there has some version of a free limited use that is a terrific source for research and information. It's funny, it's even as simple as my wife will sometimes be working on a project for our kids or something like that, and she's trying to I need to figure out how to get this. I'm like, well, why don't you ask ChatGPT? Well, it might solve your problem really quickly. It's just funny how we still don't have that reflex, but it's widely freely available for consumer use. And there's a lot of things you can do. A couple things to be aware of: your conversations will be used for model training in the free version. That's sort of one of the major trade-offs you're giving. But I'll tell you, from my perspective, a lot of times those type of conversations, I'm personally not that concerned about the information being out there that, we were doing a jam project for Christmas to make jam and organize our list, so I feel like that's okay, which is
right.
One of the my wife does. And then the other thing I think is really, and you can run into this pretty quick on some depending on the time of day and how it's going, but speed is not always as best there, and you can be limited on how much you can use one of the free versions. Any comments on the consumer version from you, Ted?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, if you're just using it for general consumer use, you probably don't need to obsess about your content being used to train the model. But the minute you start doing anything business related where you have client confidential content, your own intellectual property, all those things, the last thing you want to do is to opt into a data leak by loading up your business content. So as you move up into the plus version of the product, it costs you $20 a month. You get enhanced functionality, you get greater capacity, you can connect to certain other applications, and you can manually opt out from the model training, so that the content you're loading up, the context you're providing the tool is not being used to train the overall model. So that's kind of the key advantage of stepping into the plus version of the product. And then I think
I've heard you multiple times use the term prosumer. That's like a professional consumer combined.
Yeah.
This is the lone wolf account, right? Where you're not going to do any of the collaborative things, but you're going to get some of the better advantages. You're going to have more options, more functionality. And I prefer the faster and priority access. When things get a little hairy, you're not going to be capped as soon in the same way that the general consumer model users will be. And so that's a great way to get more started. But what I take from this slide, Ted, is that even to really meaningfully have the data protections that you want and to meaningfully even just try this stuff, the consumer version's pretty limited, and you want to be very careful with what actual use cases you put in there. It can be pretty easy to start throwing spreadsheets in there with data that you didn't want to make publicly available, or be asking questions about a presentation to a company that you're working on. And you just got to be careful with how you're approaching that. And so a real exploration, if even that's all you're doing is exploring, is probably to spin up one of these accounts that are paid accounts. And the enterprise one has way better use cases from a business or team perspective. And so even if you're just exploring, spinning up a paid account is probably worth it to make the exploration a realistic and usable exploration for business cases.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to think about is that advertising in this platform is coming, and so you know, if you're on the consumer version, the other thing you're going to have to deal with is that it's going to be like Google, and I mean, I think the ad experience is going to be different than a Google search, but there still will be ads. So if that annoys you or feels like it's going to get in the way or degrade your experience, you definitely want to be on one of the premium experience.
You get everybody rage quitting here. You know, it's like here goes another stupid ad. You know, so, I don't know. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. It's sort of controversial, right? In the sense of like, not everybody's going to love that, but you know, they're finding ways to monetize this, and I honestly can't blame them. We live in a world of ads in other places. Like I would say super annoying. Like I have like the paid version of YouTube so I can skip ads, but recently they changed it so that if I'm watching their shorts rather than the full video, I still get ads. I'm like, why am I paying this for? I'm still getting these ads interrupting this content. It's so annoying.
Yeah. It's definitely a whack-a-mole experience as a consumer trying to control your time, right, and your focus, right? So
yeah, well, I get it. The ad, it's like, well, you know, that's the funny thing about all this when it comes to the ads. It's like it's just no surprise that that's going to be something that works. The advertising space for it's an enormous business, and it is how these large companies are monetizing and, you know, really driving what their business is. It's interesting though, because I'm interested to see how this affects the actual paid accounts and what that means from an ad perspective as well. But nonetheless, the consumer versions, it's a forgiven conclusion, and it makes sense to me when they're giving it away for free that there's additional trade-offs like ads involved.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, when you step into the team and enterprise version, this is where I think the magic can happen with AI in a business setting, is when you really start leveraging these tools to interact with your own existing content. The file repositories you have that are, you know, years or decades old, the rich intellectual property or insights you have buried in your own content, that's where you can use these tools to really unlock a ton of value and to collaborate inside your organization. So some of the cool things about ChatGPT for team or business is that you can then connect it to traditional business applications like your files and folders in different file collaboration platforms. You can connect it to your video conferencing platforms. You can connect it to your email and calendar. So I mean, that's where, you know, day to day, so much of our work is happening inside our inbox, inside our Teams chats or Zoom chats, whatever you happen to be using, Slack in some cases. That's where a lot of your value inside your organization is captured, and you want ChatGPT to be able to link into those services and leverage that content and leverage all of the data that's in there so that you can make the tool make you more productive. And so that's what we're going to show in the next couple of minutes. Now, it's even a bigger step up financially. So ChatGPT for business or team, they changed the name, and I'm kind of like forgetting. I think that they now call it ChatGPT for Business. It used to be called for Team. But anyway,
Yeah.
any small organization or small group of professional users who want to collaborate together, it's $30 a month. And then the $200 a month subscription is more for kind of like enterprise use cases or people, building really advanced applications that need that kind of larger context window, speed, and capacity. But for a lot of business users who want to get super serious about this, the $30 per employee per month is probably the right investment point for a lot of folks. So,
and it's a pretty common price range you're seeing across the board for that sort of case, and so that's sort of what you're in for. And I'll be honest, like for me, because this is so developmental, like I wouldn't sleep on ChatGPT. Sometimes I see people talking about it's the un-GPT moment. Is it Claude now, or is it Gemini, or is it Perplexity? Are we gonna? Is it where's the major wins with Copilot? There's some really incredible recent additions to Copilot that you should not be skipping past that one, particularly if you're in the Microsoft land with Office 365. It's just incredible. And so, but the ChatGPT piece, and so the reality of it is, I think, like, from my perspective, I'm thinking like, what's my combo, not which one am I going to use? And I think that's sort of how that's coming in. And there isn't, in my opinion, a clear winner. There's strengths and weaknesses between them, right? But ideally, at least you could get past the I'm not using any of them, or my people are using them and I really don't know what they are and they aren't doing. And maybe they're all using consumer versions and sending stuff we don't want out there. I mean, that's a legitimate concern. It's like, the reality of it is, if you haven't figured out how to put a policy together and some governance ideas around this in your business, I guarantee your people are using it. And are they doing what you wish they do? It's funny, we did a CEO roundtable last year, Ted, you and I, and we were talking to these folks about where they're at in their AI journey. And that was a major concern. It's like, I think one of the guys said it perfect. It's like, well, I'm concerned they're not using AI. That's and I'm also concerned they are using AI.
Exactly.
So it's a pretty real question. In some ways, I think maybe more it's like, are they using the right AI? Are they using the wrong one? Ones I don't want them to use, right? But a lot of owners don't even know how to make that distinction. So hopefully this slide helps you with some of the answers. And really, budgets are not endless, and so getting everybody in your business a $200 subscription to 2 or 3 different AIs could be cost prohibitive, right? And so you got to find what works for your organization and has the piece that makes sense. So
it's a time of such innovation. You've got to show personal leadership, I think, as a leader in a business, that you've really got to carve out personal R&D time and play with these tools and allocate budget to go experiment. And as you mentioned, Carl, there's just so much to talk about in this space because there's so much competition. But hopefully we as business leaders and consumers are all going to benefit from this competition, because it's just going to continue to drive the innovation agenda, and there's new and different things we can do with this technology. But today we're just going to wanted to kind of set the stage here, but now we're going to get laser focused on ChatGPT for Business and show some of the unique capabilities there and get into some demos as next up on our agenda.
There's a solid 90s meme here for us, for the distinguished man of a certain generation. It's a 90s meme about a 60s meme, right? This is what we got going on.
All right. Well, so I think I'm up first. And so what I'm going to do is I'm over here. So Carl, you could see my screen okay?
Yep.
And all right.
Looking good.
Okay, great. So let's kind of get everybody oriented, right? So I think, as we mentioned in the intro and lead up here, ChatGPT is the service that kind of captured the imagination of the public. It broke out with just an incredibly easy to use UI, almost taking us back to the original days of Google, where you just had this really slick thing you just typed into and got your answers. That's kind of one of the great things about ChatGPT, is they've kind of kept it really simple and really easy to use. Now, in this scenario, we are licensed on a ChatGPT for Business account. And so we're going to show some of those unique capabilities here. And one of the most important capabilities of ChatGPT for Business is the ability to connect it to your existing apps. So I'm going to go up here in the left corner and click on apps. And what you'll see here is that because ChatGPT has the largest user base, I mean, they have competition. Google, some of the largest companies in the world, Google Gemini, Claude from Anthropic. At some level, Copilot and ChatGPT are both like partners, but also competitors. Yeah, I mean, competitors at some level in terms of how people are going to actually leverage this technology. But ChatGPT has the most users, full stop, right? They're the market share leader. They have the brand name recognition. And so what you see is they've done an awesome job of building out a huge app ecosystem. So you can go and connect ChatGPT to these various apps. Some of them are consumer, many of them are business apps. So if you just kind of toggle through here, what you'll see is names you'll recognize, things like Dropbox or Ignite, so traditional file collaboration platforms. You could connect this to your Gmail, if you use Google Workspace, or you have a Google Docs, Google Drive account, you can connect to the whole Google ecosystem. And then lots of other names you would recognize, your Intuit QuickBooks, your HubSpot. So all of the big names of the B2B SaaS world are in here. In our example here, what we've done is we have a demo environment that's a Microsoft 365 demo environment.
But wait, I didn't know ChatGPT could interface with Microsoft stuff.
Yes, I mean and so I think that's the interesting thing about ChatGPT is they don't have the market share and mind share that Google and Microsoft have by owning kind of the cloud collaboration environment, but they have made it so it's very simple for you to connect ChatGPT to these environments. So what you'll notice here is you see like Outlook calendar, Outlook email, the little check mark is there. And so we have it connected. If we go down, there's SharePoint right there.
Yeah, and I've got one quick thought to add to this. So one thing it says, it's very easy to add these things as far as clicking the buttons. But honestly, if your IT team is doing their job right, when you go to connect to Workspace or to the Outlook calendar or the SharePoint for your business, there ought to be a quick little step that says, you need permission to make this connection, because connecting your things to this should be based on a company policy that's controlled and managed by your IT team and security. So your users can't just start clicking into anything you want without that being something that you have some sort of change approval process for. And so, for instance, you've got it connected here because in your organization, you determine there's a level that's okay, that the security side is working correctly, and that's important to understand. And so we say it's very easy to connect, and that's true. And if you have no security set up in Office 365, it'll fly right through. But you may have a step to talk to your IT people to say, hey, perhaps we should just make sure we all want to do this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So this is a demo environment. It's a demo Microsoft 365 environment. And yes, it was very easy for us to connect this ChatGPT account over because I'm the administrator on both. And because it's a demo environment, I don't have all of the advanced security capabilities you would want in a real organization. So in the case of
people could go and connect and be like, why am I getting this thing that says I have to ask for permission? And I would say you'd actually see that as a good thing, that your IT team is making sure you're not just anybody's just adding anything without it being at least aware and planned and understood,
That's right. So we've seen, you have your business apps. That's where all of your content lives. That's where your files and folders live. In the case of SharePoint and OneDrive, you may be a Dropbox user or Ignite user. So those are other file collaboration platforms you'd want to connect to. So now we're connected, and what I want to do now is just show some of the common demos. Now, since it's a demo environment, it requires a little bit of artistry to try to capture what is really happening in your organization in a demo environment. And so let me just show you what I've done in our demo environment. In our demo environment, I'm now here over in SharePoint, and SharePoint will, if this is how you have your file collaboration set up in your organization, SharePoint will be your file server. for your organization and have all of the shared content you might have. So there might be a marketing folder or an accounting folder or an HR or IT.
Red Lobster folder.
And then there's other content in here which we put into the demo environment to show different use cases. I'm going to focus today on this wind power folder, and just for demo purposes, what I did is I just downloaded 20 or so different PDF reports of stuff about the wind power industry. But just imagine this could be any folder in your work environment, on a project you're working on where you've got research, you've got maybe memos or transcripts of meetings you've had internally. You could have work in progress content. You could be working on the annual budget. You could be working on the top secret project. It could be anything. But the wind power folder, I've tried to simulate that experience by putting everything in there. Now let's show kind of what are some of the things you can do. So when you're over in ChatGPT, one of the things you might commonly want to understand is just, hey, what's in that particular folder? So I'm just gonna, for speed's sake, just copy my prompt from this Excel spreadsheet I have next to me right over here. So I'm just gonna say, list the contents of the wind power folder on SharePoint. Now you do need to tell ChatGPT where the content is, because you might have multiple file collaboration platforms connected, but just as a quick demo here, I'm just gonna say, hey, list the contents of the wind power folder, and it's going to go now. You can see it's showing its thinking. It's going, hey, I'm reading SharePoint. So we're kind of proving to you in the demo here that ChatGPT is actually literally connected to the SharePoint instance, has indexed to some degree the content over there, and is going to give us a quick rundown of, hey, here are all the files and folders that are. Here's a sampling of some of the folders that are over there, and then it's going to rattle them off, and then also give us hyperlinks to actually go click into those files themselves. And so you're also seeing that it's another thing it's going to do. It's going to give kind of a digest or a summary of the actual content, and actually comment on it to some degree. Another thing you could do is you could just say, hey, quickly summarize in 200 words the key takeaways of the research in the folder, and then it will actually digest all of the textual content that's in those PDF files, and then give us a rundown.
This really quickly reminds me of a quick comment on one of my favorite features that many people know who are GPT users, but if you're not, maybe you're not aware. The voice integration and conversational capability of ChatGPT, I think, is the best out there. And so you can hit the little conversational button, and instead of typing these in, he could just be having a conversation, and it speaks like a person with you. It's not just a voice transcription. It's like you're having a conversation with a person. But one reason why I like to highlight that, Ted, is because that to me is how you start to elevate your thinking around interacting with AI. This is the difference between a fancy Google search and meaningfully powerful use of ChatGPT. When you start thinking, it's like I'm having a conversation with a person that I can just ask things and it will understand. It's way more powerful. And so because I know for many years, everybody's like, well, how do I create the best prompt to get the best response? And I say these days, you don't care. Would you say that to a person? How do I best say this so you'll understand? I mean, when you're doing data research, it doesn't seem to make much sense. And if there's a better prompt you want, just say, hey, ChatGPT, give me a better prompt that I'm trying to accomplish this, and it will understand and prompt for you. It's just think of it as a person, when you're.
Yeah, perfection is very much the enemy of the good in this sort of scenario. Yeah. You reminded me of a conversation we were having with a colleague of ours the other day, and one of his morning routines on his drive into work is he'll think of a couple different emails that he needs to write, and a good way to safely use this technology when you're on the road is you just can invoke once the voice interaction, and then get into an interactive dialogue, and our colleague will get basically solid drafts of emails that he later wants to send, and he'll get them to that 80-90% stage just by interacting with the tool on the drive in. And then all of this gets logged in the history, and then the emails get to that 80-90%. And then when he sits down at his computer, once he gets to the office, he can just do a quick copy paste and do some lightweight editing, and then bang, those emails are off and ready to go.
Yeah,
So,
and I think it's important to understand like how little effort that conversational piece is. You can just say things the way you think of them. It will understand the context. It will understand where you go, and it's really easy. It's really like just dictating to an assistant who knows you. You know.
right.
Anyway, I
And
started
so,
the diversion through that, but you just reminded me of like that's like in my opinion one of the places where ChatGPT is a real winner on how they've done
and
it.
it's the quality is crazy. The quality of the the detection, accurate detection of the text from your voice, and the way it interacts with you is super easy. So it's definitely a killer app, I would say, for a lot of users. So one thing, just to come back to this, you'll notice is we have little footnotes, so it's actually referencing where it got this content. You could then copy and paste this right into a text editor or word processor of some kind, or Word. But the other thing we can do is another thing you could do is you just point out a particular file in that folder, and then create a piece of written content from a specific piece of content. So I'm going to paste in this prompt here: create a 500-word blog article out of the document World Energy Outlook 2024. And again, what I'm showing here is, of course, with generative AI, one of the most important capabilities is the ability to generate high quality content.
The content is when people talk about where's the promise of AI and what you can do, is agentic everything you want? Can you do the automation? So some of these things, once you get in, you realize, okay, that's not quite as ready, but you can do interesting things. But the content creation, it's 100% here, ready to go.
Right.
And if you still have folks writing content without the assistance of this, probably way less efficient as a team than you should be. Bearing in mind, I also think, fully stamp and move on and don't edit or do anything to it after it's been generated. You might also regret that. I think this is something you do with a human, but boy, it can make something that would take you 2 hours take 10 minutes.
That's right. And so quality control, it's a co-pilot, so to speak, not an autopilot. And you want to be doing the quality control. And I think in this example here, we're saying, hey, look at this white paper, write a blog from the white paper. And a more common scenario is you might say, hey, I have my draft notes in this particular Word document that's over here, or I have a transcript of this meeting we had. Let's do a memo from our key takeaways from that meeting. And so this is the ability to leverage your own internal content. And where the generative AI helps you is with the actual writing task, but it doesn't necessarily have to supply the quality ideas that were the genesis of the actual piece. And so that's where I think the art of using this technology effectively comes in. But I think we've shown ChatGPT nicely connected to a SharePoint environment. Another thing that you'll start to leverage when you're a ChatGPT power user is personalization. Mm-hmm. So let me just show you how that works. So one of the first things you can do is just, after you use ChatGPT for a while, it'll get to know you, and it'll get to know how you like your responses. It'll get to know your content. It'll get to know the problems you're in, you commonly have. It'll get to know your industry segment you're in, and you can actually proactively program a lot of this information into the environment, which gets you a higher quality experience. So the first thing I just want to show is you could just say, hey, tell me about what you know about me personally. So let me just again copy that prompt and drop it in here. And as you go over time, ChatGPT will get to know you even better. And so it says, I only know a little bit about you. I actually have a different ChatGPT account where I actually spend my time. This is kind of the demo environment. And so this environment does not know that much about me because there's not a lot of practical utilization of the demo environment account. But it knows I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at SnapTech IT, and spend time in Atlanta, Phoenix, and the San Francisco Bay Area a lot with our clients. But what you can do is you can go over to this personalization setting here and go in and you can pick your preferred style of how you interact. Are you warm? Are you, more or less warm, more or less enthusiastic? Do you like the emojis that often come across in a prompt response? I've given it custom instructions. I like crisp, clear communication. I'm direct, and I like my AI responses to be so as well. So,
yeah.
And then you can tell it about.
For me, I've had fun. I've sort of made mine snarky. It's a little sarcastic, and it's my zone.
Exactly, and so and this is fantastic. And I would say of all the solutions out there, ChatGPT, this is a huge competitive moat because I think they've done more with personalization than a lot of the other services.
Other ones have this option, but it is far more effective than ChatGPT in my experience. I agree with that.
Yeah. So and it builds over time. The colleague we were mentioning who spends a lot of time like crafting emails on the road and stuff like that. It's like the solution really knows him well and captures his voice over time. So that's a little bit about personalization. The last thing I want to show from a demo perspective before handing this over to Carl to show some demos is I want to show what we mean by a GPT, a custom GPT. So there's a little bit of jargon here that everybody needs to get grounded on. Is you're going to hear in the space agentic. You're going to hear about agentic AI. What do we mean by agentic AI? And agentic generative AI is where you really constrain the range of tasks that the tool is going to work on, and you constrain the context. And then by doing so, you get you get a more precise outcome for your results, and you get almost a level of automation in the outcome of what you're producing. And so, just like we saw with apps, ChatGPT has this amazing library of community-developed GPTs. So in ChatGPT, when they talk about an agent, they call them GPTs. That's the jargon you need to know. When you're over operating in, say, Microsoft Copilot or over in other solutions, they're called different things. Microsoft's kind of settled on the term agent is kind of where they're making their bet. But the whole benefit of building custom agents is you really want to oftentimes control the content, the context, and the voice of the content that's going to be created. And so, for example, really common one you might think of is like if you have a whole bunch of employee onboarding content that you want to build, say, an agent when you have a new employee come on board. When new employees come on board, it's always this huge information transfer problem where there's all this stuff the new employee needs to learn about. They need to learn about their benefits. They need to learn about their software systems, their IT systems. They need to know who to go to for what. And oftentimes you get 30 emails or whatever it is you have to wade through to try to understand all this stuff. A much better way to do that is to take all of your standard new employee content, program the agent with all of that content, and then point your new employee to this agent and say, hey, anytime you have a question, start here. Ask the agent the question, and I'm sure there's going to be some piece of relevant content that you could get after. And so you could take your employee manual, all of the summary documents about your employee benefits, dress code, any sort of rules of the road, that sort of thing you want to have clearly communicated to staff. You could put all of that into an agent and use that agentic experience as a way to guide an employee in a time where information, Q&A and rapid information exchange is very valuable. So that's how an agent or a GPT works.
Yeah, I think a key element about this is tipping into something that should be thought of like, how do you approach this from a strategic standpoint? What are the advantages and disadvantages of thinking about these GPTs, for instance? And there's a couple of things that come to mind for me, Ted. One is that if you're thinking just everybody gets a ChatGPT account and they can ask it whatever, it's just their one and only solution, it's never going to have this ability to do these really spot tasks collaboratively across in any significant, easy way. I think rather than, I mean, everybody needs an account, but if you really want individual tasks, you need to put these agents or GPTs out there for specific tasks. So I think every business should be thinking about how many of these I'm going to put out and what tasks are they going to accomplish, because they're focused, they're less likely to hallucinate or make stuff up. You could say, follow these documents, provide this information only, and it can do really specific tasks. And so rather than think everybody has one GPT account and one prompt, you can say, okay, here's our list of the different GPTs that you use as tools to reliably take you through these specific tasks or these specific information areas, and that you can have a conversation back and forth with. I think that's a key element to understand the design is some of the weaknesses of AI in general, and you'd be surprised, but it guesses the answer and it's good at guessing, but it can make stuff up and it can do things unexpectedly. When you put it into this GPT realm, it becomes far more reliable on giving the answer you intended it to. And its information source is contained within the box of the data you give it. I just think that's an important distinction to understand about the GPT or the agentic approach. Is I think you should be thinking, how many of these should I be making and for what problems am I going to solve? The onboarding case is a great one. Employee handbook's another terrific one. Maybe it's how all your sales playbooks. So somebody can say, hey, I've got this client's doing this. What are great ways for me to approach this? Or what offering should I mix? Or how should I build this proposal? And if you built that into a GPT, you're going to get some really good specific answers that are really specific to your company's process, as opposed to just whatever it finds out there in the great AI land, you know.
Right.
And so both actually have value, I would say. It's just the point is that when you build these GPTs, you're building a really reliable, focused tool, and just think about what could you do with tools like that. So just I feel like that's what I can putting a little emphasis on.
Yeah, and hallucination is a huge problem. Kind of voice and style is another challenge in terms of what you get the output for. And so here is a real GPT that we use every day. And we call this the SnapTech IT Blogging Booster. Our colleague Nathan Caldwell built this. And what we did is we programmed this GPT with our website, with all of the blog content that we've written before, which really captures kind of our expertise set, our voice, how we like to explain things, how we like to educate around different topics. And the key here is that we don't just use AI to just blog generically about topics. We try to give it our own point of view. And so commonly what we're doing, some of the most common use cases is we'll do a webinar like this where we have casual commentary, casual insights, our own personal experiences, our own personal examples. And then we will have a transcript of that interaction. And then we use that to feed into the actual tool to actually write a blog. So that's how Blogging Booster works. Now, the other cool thing that this does is if you've ever been the person who has to go publish your company blog, you realize that one of the values of blogging as a business professional is you're trying to be found out on the web, right? You're trying to provide content to your public, but you're also trying to make sure that your website is relevant. And you do that by properly programming all the other content and keywords and metadata and tags around the blog you post, and for search engine optimization. And so what we've also done with this GPT is when it publishes the blog, it also gives what we call the publishing kit, that the person who's going to go then publish the blog can just really quickly copy and paste all that extra content and go quickly publish that blog. So let me just show you quickly how that would work. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go into my files and I'm going to look for, this is a transcript of so it's like a 32-page transcript of a webinar we did. And I'm going to provide a prompt and I'm going to say, hey, write a 500-word blog based on this transcript, and make sure you give the WordPress and Elementor publishing kit in addition. And so here, like we've shown before, we're leveraging our own, internal knowledge by using our own transcript of our webinar, and it's going to produce the blog and give us a nice crisp summary of what we talked about in that webinar. And then it's also going to give us that publishing kit. And that's really where, when you're talking about productivity and the benefit of having an agentic or a GPT type experience, is you can really program, what you constrain your output and get a predictable outcome. So what you see here is you get your key phrases, your SEO title, the slug, the excerpt. And so all of these elements down here can quickly help you to go publish this blog. So that's it. That's how you use a GPT, Carl. Those are all my demos. Can I hand the ball to you?
Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to just show a couple of app integrations as an example. It's been pretty meaningful for me in my position. Sometimes I need a quick presentation. Sometimes I need to do a few things. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Hopefully I picked a. We're back into the Austin Powers danger zone here.
Yeah.
Are you seeing my screen yet? I'm still seeing yours on the thing here, but I did hit show it. See how this goes. Danger is my middle name. How's it going there, Ted? Is it showing up there?
I'm not seeing it yet.
Maybe if you actually hit stop on yours.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now I'm seeing your screen.
Okay, terrific. Okay. All right, we have successfully switched presenters. It's a big moment for us. We should have had ChatGPT do it for us. All right. So I've got a personal account up here, and so you can imagine one of my hobbies is doing music things, and so you'll see some of my fun stuff is about music. So I thought I'd just pick some funny different topics, but I thought it'd be one to show you. When you put in apps, you can go to the app section and find your way there. Also, once it's connected, you can kind of hit this little plus button, pop down here, and you can see apps that you've got added here. And so like one of the things I thought would be a fun demo is like just do a quick presentation with Canva. It's funny how often this has actually come up in things that I'm doing where I'm like, I'm about to talk to these folks. I'm gonna go build a PowerPoint for it or a different type of presentation. And man, has this been supercharged with some of these apps, these integrations with AI. And so I have an example, or I thought, oh, it'd be fun to give a prompt here. And by the way, I'm just showing what I did just before the webinar today, because when it gets to the actual image generate, that takes like 2 to 3 minutes. And while I can vamp and say a lot of stuff, I just didn't want to sit here and watch it thinking for 2 to 3 minutes. So I really did this right before the webinar. But I said, help me. First of all, I chose the Canva app as an example. I said, help me create a presentation to build an 80s cover band pedal board, which is something I like to do in my my free time. And so it went through the process. You can see its response to it. Eventually created this building a plan for me. And I could pick tones, I can say what versions, how I want to go about it. And it gave me a plan, and then I just hit generate design. And then it goes through the process and gives me some thoughts on how it goes. It gives me a little bit about the process. And then I went through that bit. So here, then I go to Canva, and it was kind of fun too, by the way, because I say it was nice because it actually, when it produces, it gave me actually 4 versions of it, 4 very different versions that I can just pick between, see which ones I like. Like this first one, I'll be honest, I did not like it at all. Yeah, but that's kind of how it works. But hey, here I got 4 versions. So I picked one of the versions to show you. It just took no time at all for it to produce this content, AI generated imagery, and talking about the different flavors and whatnot. I didn't say anything about any of this other than I gave it the signal that's like, I want to do 80s. So clearly I need the sound effects to make it sound like an 80s rock band, if you will. And so it's kind of fun how it just kind of went through. And of course, I could do more with it. I could move things around. I can edit it further, or I could go back to ChatGPT and reprompt and give more direction, because I gave it almost no direction as to what content I was looking for. But I think it's like, I have used this a couple of times in some pretty fun and interesting ways. Like recently, I found myself in a leadership conversation. I think it's going to show up here, where I was showing some of the contents of the book, Extreme Ownership, to a group of key executives that I was doing some leadership training. I said, hey, I want to show some of these things. And it really took me less than 5 minutes to create this content that I then went and delivered a 2-hour lecture on. And so that would have taken me hours before. and everything's lined up and it looks cohesive and nice, right? And so there's some of these use cases that are just incredible as far as time savers for a business presentation. It's amazing the content that it will know and understand. Another great one for presentations is the Gamma app. It can do things very quickly as well. A lot of custom AI generated image. It'll organize and put your thoughts together for you. But don't sleep on it. There's lots of ways of doing this. The Copilot stuff in PowerPoint has been great for a long time. It's recently become significantly better even, and other AIs are doing a terrific job in this sort of presentation. But I just thought that would be a fun thing, a little bit about Canva, a little bit about Gamma. Don't forget these things are out there. They're relatively easy to interact with, and you can really create meaningfully great looking presentations in 2 to 3 minutes. And then of course, you decide the quality of the content and what that means. And certainly if you spend more time prompting than just a one sentence thing, you can get a far more specific result, which might make it more of a finished product when it comes out. And so I just thought it'd be fun to show that how easy that is. If you haven't done that, you really should consider it. And your team members that are sitting there for hours building presentations or proposals for a sales thing or writing scope for a statement of work, boy, that should be getting done in an AI process. And ChatGPT is as good as any as when it comes to those things, as far as I'm concerned. Any thoughts from you, Ted, on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a really important thing to keep in mind is I think you can get an outstanding outcome with a brief set of prompts, like a really brief prompt, but you can also really pack in your entire point of view for a particular topic so that the actual outcome is really on point with your own, say, unique perspective. So you can feed it an outline, or you can, I've had a lot of good success taking like a transcript of a talk I heard where I wanted to produce like a PowerPoint based summary of the conversation, and you can feed that transcript right into the prompt, and it's going to then find the complementary images and key bullet points that to go into the slides. And again, my point is whether it's Canva, Gamma, or PowerPoint, I find that like 100% of the time it gets me to 80%. And that is like the difference between that and having to stare at a blank slide and start from scratch on any given topic is night and day in terms of personal productivity. And so, I mean, I don't know.
It's polish it can help you with. It's graphically, I don't know about you, Ted, but I'm the most talented designer of things, right?
Right.
And figuring out pictures and color schemes. And so what I did for years is I just used the very basic templates of PowerPoint, when I'm doing it. And so a lot of my presentations, for one thing, looked a lot alike. And you can just do so much better. You can just make it so much more from the polish standpoint.
Oh yeah, I mean, just it's I on the slideware topic, I am a big fan of PowerPoint with Copilot. And there's a little for anyone who wants to go look at this, if you happen to have a licensed version of Copilot, is there's also a feature in PowerPoint called Designer, and the Designer tool is super handy in these scenarios where you have a whole bunch of slides that were created from scratch for you, and you just have like a slight different kind of stylistic take you want to take on the slides, and you just use the Designer tool, and you can go through and change the formatting just ever so slightly, really quickly. Again, super fast way to get to the outcome you want. So,
but when you're talking to design disabled people like me, that stuff is godsend. It's like, for me, like I'm with you. The PowerPoint native things and the Copilot things, I was less using them before, but some of the recent additions have been just terrific. And so I'm just, and that's the reality of it is like there's lots of options. And today we've been working hard on showing what you can do with ChatGPT in some important ways. But a lot of these things can be done in other AIs too. And where does it fit, right? So I think it's just important to recognize that this is an option, and it's the one that came out, has the most users. There's so many advantages to it. But I'll be honest, I have a Copilot license, I've got a Claude license, I've got a ChatGPT license, and I'm kind of using them all, and Gemini too. And so, and like I keep thinking, do I need to add a few more, because there's some great sounding ones and people talk about the advantages and disadvantages. But as an all-around encompassing one, ChatGPT is a terrific option. Also, the Microsoft Copilot, particularly if you're in the Office 365 ecosystem, it's pretty powerful. The integrations are really compelling, so it's an interesting point of view. But if you haven't meaningfully, if you're one of those dots on that diagram I saw that have not yet logged in, or your team is not doing anything, boy, I think you're probably missing out on some major productivity enhancements and some efficiencies. And your team is, reality of it is they probably are using it at some level, and you might want to put a handle and a control and have a plan for it, as opposed to letting it just grow in the wild, if you will.
Right. That's right. And I think a huge part of this is, crawl, walk, run. Leaders need to lead in this area, and that means there's got to be a lot of hands-on experimentation. And once you start cracking the code on these major productivity unlocks in your organization and these ways to leverage your own content, then you really need to get organized. You need to make sure you have the right security and governance. You need to make sure you have partnerships and staff that are really thinking about and layers of productivity in terms of driving this stuff. And so maybe that's a good segue to a kind of a call to action if any of the audience wants to touch base with Raven.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. The key thing is you might want to coordinate your costs. Maybe people are spending all sorts of, maybe people are putting their own personal money and making it happen. I mean, all sorts of stuff can happen because people are reaching for this, and how can you organize it and have a good strategy that involves both security. And to be perfectly frank, I think where Raven fits in this picture is, one is we're an organization that can guide your organization through the enablement piece. We're going to continue to produce a lot of educational content that you and your team could benefit from. But beyond the enablement piece, we have a lot of experts that are really making some incredible things happen in the automation space, where you're going to put meaningful business processes into action that no longer require the tedious, mundane, and repetitive work to be done by a human, but more overseen and quality improved or quality reviewed. But you're going to get things done that you just didn't think were possible with an efficiency level that you haven't seen before. And one way sometimes when I'm talking to business owners, I try to explain, it's like, look, think about the 15 to 30 tools your team uses on various websites and applications. What if they all talk to each other? And what if you had this AI GPT or other agent or a skill thing happening that did a lot of the work of the integration for you? That's the kind of things that we're doing at Raven Automation. We're an AI first and automation first organization. It's really all we do. And so feel free to hit that QR code. You can talk to one of our experts. You can ask more questions about things we're working on. And if there's some interesting points you're thinking about your AI strategy, or you're thinking, hey, how can I get jump started? How can I really supercharge my team quickly and go from zero to something meaningfully happening? We have a jumpstart program that can get you to a meaningful automation functioning, in the first 30 days, or depending on how big a one, maybe it's the first quarter, but we can help you jump right in, get your strategy, your governance together, do some enablement work with your team, some education work, and then also do a deep dive on your business processes to figure out what your AI plan is and get you a roadmap of the various things that you prioritize, that you figure out this is going to have the biggest impact. Because without putting organization and knowing what tools to put in what combination for your specific needs, you can really spend a lot of time wandering in the desert with all these distractions that are really cool, but ultimately don't meaningfully move the needle for your organization. And so that's what the expertise is about. And we're really happy with our partnership with SnapTech IT, and I know they're doing some terrific work there, Ted. I know you've been a big piece of that, and so happy to have you here and sharing your insights and the things that you're working on at SnapTech IT. And here at Raven, we're here to be a resource as well. So please feel free to reach out. And thank everybody for coming today. And for the brave few that made it all the way to the end, here you are. You get the best content at the very end.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. Looking forward to connecting to you on the next webinar. stay on the lookout for our promotions for that. And we're just going to keep the content relevant and in today's world for the average business owner and the folks working, that they can find some amazing ways to take advantage of AI and automation use cases.
All right. Thanks, Carl. Take care.